With that, I'll read the proclamation. The proclamation, whereas the theme of this 30th annual celebration is courage and conviction, moving forward in challenging times. And by such an event, we are expressing our hopes, dreams, and beliefs, and reaffirming our rights as citizens and the liberties possible in the United States. And whereas we rededicate ourselves to the truths that he strove for in this special year of commemoration, we thus engage in the valuable activity of reserving a day or days toward that end, and we recall the legacy that the Reverend Dr. King created. And whereas the legacy is expressed in national holidays and the building of monuments, and it is remembered by the exceptional and separate character of our values as expressed by Dr. King's. And whereas in 1962, the Reverend Dr. King stated, "Hating is always tragic. It is as injurious to the hater as it is to the hated. It distorts the personality and scars the soul." Psychiatrists, believing that many of man's inner conflicts are rooted in hate, are now saying, "Love or perish." And this is the beauty of nonviolence. It says you can struggle without hating, you can fight war without violence. And whereas the Ecumenical Fellowship, the City of Lawrence, Kansas, USD 497, and the University of Kansas, along with other community institutions, are all cooperating to support the activities planned for the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, encourage the local residents to show their commitment to continue to develop Dr. King's vision by participating in them. Now, therefore, I, Mike Amix, Mayor of the City of Lawrence, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the week of January 17th through 22nd, 2016, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Week. Thank you all very much for your commitment, gentlemen. Our next proclamation is to proclaim the month of January 2016 as Lawrence Transit Month. And I know we have a number of people here this evening. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Serena Pearson, and this is Emily Lubliner. We are with Lawrence Transit, and we just wanted to talk a little bit about our 15-year anniversary and the story writing contest that we did. We know that a lot of our writers have some really great stories to tell, so we thought this would be a good idea to hear a lot of those stories by doing a contest. So what we did was we had first place winner was won a year's worth of free bus passes, second prize won 6 months of free fare, and third prize won 3 months. And we have our winners here tonight. Our first place winner is Jacob Horton. Jacob, he started riding the bus when he was 5 years old. He's a regular rider. He started riding to school when he was 16, or not 16, when he was in the 6th grade, actually. And he rides all over. He's found that the bus takes him everywhere. He's made lots of friends, and he finds that it's very useful for him. So he's really gotten a lot of use out of the bus. So we really appreciate his story. He wrote a great story about it. So he won a full year of free bus fare. Our second prize winner is Johnny Lyons. You want to come up here, Johnny? Johnny rides the Route 5. Yeah. Johnny rides the Route 5. He goes out to East Hills Business Park, and he wrote a great story about all the interesting people that he's met on the bus, including all the drivers, all the people about where they're from, and hearing all their great stories to tell. So he wrote a really great story. All of these stories are actually on our website, and also they're posted at the library on a bulletin board. So if you want to read their full stories. And our third place winner is Billy Baker. Now, Billy lives with his grandma. He works at Cottonwood, and so he is able to take the T-lift to get to Cottonwood and back home. They come right to his door, and the drivers have been very, very helpful in making sure that he gets to where he needs to go. And his cousin, actually, are you the one that wrote this story? This is Amanda. She wrote this story, and it was really great. She talked about how they don't have to really worry about him. You know, he's in good hands once he gets on the bus. So we really appreciated that story, and we appreciate the Billy Rides the Bus. So we appreciate all these winners. They did a great job. We had about 40 stories in all. There's some other great stories that you guys all can read. But a common theme is just how much transit has helped people in this community, how it gets them to their jobs, how it gets them to doctor's appointments, to grocery store, and mostly how it helps people lead an independent life. They're not relying on others to get them where they need to go. So we just want to thank the committee that one of our members is Heather back here. We had a committee that read all the stories and picked the winners. So they did a great job. So we just thought it was appropriate to make Transit Month the month of January, and we really want to encourage everybody to give the bus a try if they haven't tried it before. And that's about all we have.
Well, thank you. I do want to congratulate on behalf of the commission the 3 winners this evening, and just thank you for riding the bus. You know, the T is a special part of this community, and several years ago we had an election. We were kind of looking for money, and there was, you know, the public stepped forward, and you know, I think in that election, I think it won in just like every precinct in town, that you know, people recognize the need, you know, for the T service, and how important it is to any great number of people, and you know, the service is building, and you know, it's folks like yourselves that really make it happen and make it work well. So thank you very much for always being a rider, and congratulations on a year and 6 months and I guess 90 days. That's a big deal. So anyway, with that, I would be happy to read the proclamation. Okay. Proclamation, whereas Lawrence Transit System, the T, began in 2000 when Lawrence residents recognized a need for transit in their community. And whereas transit is vital to the community and economic development, providing transportation to jobs, schools, shopping, and appointments. And whereas transit provides transportation options for people who either do not own a car, cannot drive, or just choose to ride the bus instead of driving. And whereas the coordinated bus service with KU allows anyone to ride any bus in Lawrence, increasing transportation options for all bus riders. And whereas transit reduces traffic on the road, helps the environment, and reduces the need for parking. And whereas the T-Lift provides vital transportation for people who are unable to ride the fixed route buses due to disabilities. And whereas the Lawrence community supports transit, and it shows. Ridership numbers increased each year and have reached over 1 million riders a year for the last 2 years. That's pretty incredible. Now, therefore, I, Mike Amix, Mayor of the City of Lawrence, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the month of January 2016 as Lawrence Transit Month in the City of Lawrence, and give full support toward enabling community members to ride the bus and enjoy the freedom and stress-free commute that the transit provides. Thank you all very much for the hard work and dedication that everybody has to the T system. It's great. Thank you. Thanks for giving us the stories.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and all matters listed on the consent agenda are to be considered under one motion and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on those items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Are there any items on the consent agenda that a member of the commission would like to have removed for separate discussion?
Number 16, please.
Okay. Any other items a member of the commission would like to have removed for separate discussion? Okay. There is item number 12, which is the street event temporary use public right-of-way permit for the Kansas food truck has been withdrawn at this time at the applicant's request. I assume it'll come back at a later date. Okay. So with that, is there any item on the consent agenda that a member of the public would like to have removed for separate discussion? Okay, hearing none. So with the exception of item number 16, which is the authorized staff to implement the tobacco-free parks policy, with the exception of that item and the addition of claims to 150 vendors in the amount of $926,874.17 and payroll in the amount of $446,119.45. Those not, those, huh? Oh, yeah, there you go. So with the addition of claims and the exception of item number 16, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second to approve the consent agenda with claims and without item number 16, made by Vice Mayor Soden, second by Commissioner Boley. All in favor of that motion, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 5-0. Item number 16 is to authorize staff to implement the tobacco-free parks policy by April 1st, 2016, as recommended by the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Lisa, you had a question?
Yeah, first, I think it's a really good policy. I just had some people email me and wanted to clarify that this is a policy and not a law. Just wanted to make sure on that.
Yes, that's correct. Mark Eckler, Parks and Rec. What we're working towards is the ability for our staff to be able to control smoking, especially gathering places like a band concert or in a stadium environment where we have a lot of people gathering. So we're looking for a policy that allows us to do that, to just basically keep some of those smoking products away from the kids' area especially.
Okay, that was it. That's the question I had.
Okay. Any other questions of Mark while he's here? Okay, thanks, Mark. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, back to the commission now. Thank you for asking that question, Lisa.
Only that the lectern microphone's not on in the lobby. Thank you.
Okay. We'll take care of that. Thanks for bringing that up, just so that we can, everybody understands that that is the case. It's policy and not law. Okay. Well, if there's no other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion then to authorize the staff to implement the tobacco-free parks policy by April 1st, as recommended by the Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second for approval, made by Commissioner Larson, second by Commissioner Herbert. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 5-0. Thank you all. Next item is the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. A couple items for you this evening. One, we have a report there on 9th Street and some of the crash history analysis and related to our project on 9th Street signal coordination. So you can see a fairly sizable decrease there in crashes that have occurred. The Affordable Housing Advisory Board is up and running, as you know, had some meetings late last year, and they have published their schedule of meetings for 2016. So those meetings are listed here. They meet here in the City Commission room.
I will give an update that at our meeting yesterday, we did change that schedule due to spring break, and also an item that we'll talk to you all a little bit later about. The board has decided to have a second February meeting on February 22nd. So because they're having 2 February meetings and spring break, there won't be a March meeting. So the February 8th meeting is on. An additional meeting is scheduled for February 22nd, and then there will not be a March 14th meeting. So a little late to get
Thanks for
that
that
updated,
clarification.
but just to give you an update.
We'll get this published on the website on the Affordable Housing Advisory Board, so we have all of that there. And then a memo you'll find from the MPO staff related to the new federal surface transportation plan, which is called Fixing America's Surface Transportation, or the FAST Act, which just went into effect in December. So there's some general information for you and things that we'll be looking at related to that program ongoing. Eileen Horn has prepared a nice report that highlight the 2015 Common Ground program and its results. So there's some nice pictures for you. There's also some nice numbers and stories related to that Common Ground program and how that gardening program is helping to benefit the community. The Planning and Development Services Department has provided a monthly project report, as they do every month for you, and that report provides an update to you on a variety of projects that they have going on, and there's several meetings coming up related to some of those key projects that I would draw your attention to. And we have several of those, I believe, on the calendar and other places. The Arts and Economic Prosperity Project is a national study that measures economic impact of the nonprofit arts and culture organizations and their audiences. The City of Lawrence participated in this study sometime back at the turn of this century. And so it's been almost 15 years now since the city has participated in this program. We are planning on participating here with this particular plan, and this will provide us a good data on the economic impact of arts and culture activities in the community, and probably more importantly, provide a good baseline for us to measure future progress in this area. And this was one of the items that was a recommendation coming out of the cultural plan. So we wanted to let you know that we'll be working on that, and you'll be hearing more about that as we move forward. There'll be a variety of partners that'll be involved in it. We also wanted to update you briefly. In November, you all directed us to request a safety study at the Lawrence Municipal Airport. Since that meeting, Chuck Souls with Public Works has been talking with the FAA district office in Kansas City about that, and you'll find attached here, then this is the FAA's letter to the Wichita Flight Standards Office requesting that study be conducted. So that is in progress. We don't know when we will hear back as a result of the study, but we'll certainly keep you apprised of what we hear back. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, questions of Diane? Any questions? Okay, Diane, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is general public comment, and the public is allowed to speak to any items or issues that are not scheduled on the agenda after first being recognized by the mayor. As a general practice, the commission will not discuss or debate these items, nor will the commission make decisions on items presented during this time. Rather, they will refer those items to staff for follow-up. Individuals are asked to come to the microphone, sign in, and state their name and address. Speakers should address all comments and questions to the commission. Are there any general public comments this evening on anything that is not scheduled on the agenda this evening? Any general public comment? Okay. Then we are on to the regular agenda, and the same rules do apply on addressing the commission tonight. Public is again allowed to speak on any of the regular agenda items or give public comment after first being recognized by the mayor. Individuals are asked to come to the microphone and sign in and state their name and address. Speakers should address all comments and questions to the commission. I would ask anyone who brought their cell phone this evening, if we could silence those, we would appreciate it, just so that we don't interrupt speakers or presenters to the commission meeting tonight. First item on the agenda is consider the appeal of the Historic Resources Commission determination per 20-308G of the Land Development Code for the installation of a metal arch associated with a sidewalk dining area located in the public right-of-way adjacent to Jazz, a Louisiana kitchen located at 1012 Massachusetts Street. This item, I believe at my request, was asked to defer for several weeks, and that I wanted to make sure that I had paid attention to all the information that was presented. So, Lynn, you have additional information.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator for the city. Wanted to just give you a quick update of where we are for this particular project. And our legal staff has asked me at this time if you would please disclose any ex parte communication that you may have had on this agenda item.
I don't think I've had any.
None?
None.
Bless it. Well, I haven't had any.
I just talked to Dennis Brown and asked him if he was going to be. That's about it.
Oh, yeah.
None whatsoever.
Wonderful, thank you. As the mayor mentioned, this was deferred from your December 1st meeting, and staff provided some additional information in a memo form that was included in your packet. Just wanted to briefly show you again where the building is that we're talking about and the associated sidewalk. It's in the bright red square here at 1012 Massachusetts Street. This is looking at the existing sidewalk dining area. And this is looking with the proposed arch. The applicant had the opportunity to place the arch so that we could see what it would look like if it were to be installed. It was not installed. This was just for our benefit to look at it and see what type of result we would have if we installed the arch. The downtown design guidelines have been used by the city since about 2001. They provide guidance and expectations for property owners, designers, and developers. And staff is the first, if you will, person that reviews projects using those downtown design guidelines. If staff can't approve a project based on those guidelines, then the applicant has the ability to appeal that to the Historic Resources Commission. If the Historic Resources Commission cannot approve the project, then the applicant has the ability to appeal to this body. And that is the situation we're in this evening. The applicant has appealed, and your option is to determine whether or not the project meets those downtown design guidelines. And staff has come up since the deferral with a couple of possible options that you may want to consider this evening. And the first would be to uphold the HRC determination and make a finding that the project does not meet the intent of the goals and specific guidelines. The second possible option would be to defer the project and allow time for amendments to go through the process so that they can be adopted into that code. And then the third option that staff has identified would be to overturn the HRC determination and approve the project, identifying how the proposed project meets the design standards. And if this is the option you should direct this evening, then we would ask that you also direct staff how to interpret the guidelines for sidewalk dining, the height of the railings, and other things like that, or that are similar in scope, so that we will know how to proceed with reviews while we undertake the way that we need to adopt or amend those guidelines. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions of Lynn?
Okay. I guess I would have one. The downtown design guidelines were adopted to cover a great multitude of things, obviously. At the time that the city decided to allow outdoor dining, was the code amended at that point to set up these standards of which, everybody had to follow?
No, that actually happened at a later date. There was an applicant who came to the city commission requesting the sidewalk dining on the public right-of-way. And so the guidelines followed a couple of those requests because they had been coming up. The first one kind of set the stage, and then other business owners requested that same type of thing. So the guidelines were established as those permit requests were coming in. And then we had a set of guidelines that was done by administrative policy. And as the downtown design guidelines were updated, then we included a section on that. We went through several public meetings at the Historic Resources Commission, and then also came to this body to go through those changes for the adoption of the downtown design guidelines revision.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Again, if we could silence our electronic devices, that would be helpful this evening, okay? The applicant, do you have any additional information you wish to provide?
Just very briefly, not a lot of additional information, but since it's been a little bit of time, if we could just real quickly go over. I would recommend number 3, obviously. I want to just real quickly make you aware. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Vic Allred, owner of Jazz Louisiana Kitchen. Again, the arch remains a very integral part of our concept, and I want to thank Lynn for those beautiful drawings, because if you could see how easily that arch just slips right into the center of the fence, and I think for anyone in this room to be able to say that we haven't upgraded that area significantly and tried to bring it up to the standard of the Historical Commission, I don't think that there's any argument that we have, and I think we've done a great job, and I really think that the additional arch is just going to enhance the value of our storefront. I just wanted to also maintain that the arch is not a fence, and I think we found some gray area within the regulations here. This is not a fence. This is an entryway, and although it's been treated as a fence, it's not a fence, and I think there's a legal remedy there. Thirdly, I think there's been a little bit of a conflict with the Historical Commission, and perhaps that's been 100% my fault. I wrote some very flowery language about how I wanted to be able to transport a person to the sounds and smells and sights of New Orleans. And that's what we want to do. That's what probably any Italian concept wants to do, or any Mexican food restaurant. You want to bring that person to the experience of what you're having through both the aura of your atmosphere as well as the quality of your food, the uniforms that your employees wear. So the exterior of our concept is no different than anything that we have. It's an integral part of our concept. And I think because there's been somehow the misinterpretation that somehow I want to turn Massachusetts Street into Bourbon Street, and that is not my intention. My intention is just to simply say we have this small storefront. We're a New Orleans-style French Quarter cafe, and we want it to look like one. And I don't think that's out of the extraordinary. And I apologize for any reason if there's been a misconception on my part that I've wanted to somehow change the historical nature of Massachusetts Street, because it's a great street. Lastly, I really do think that the sky is not falling. And I do not think that you're going to get inundated with 1 million people that are now going to try to change their applications for a permit or somehow install some other type of art or another arch. I really think that's overplay. I don't think that you're really going to see that as a big problem. And lastly, I've been open for 3 months. We've invested a good number of dollars and resources in your community, in your street. I simply ask that you make that return investment in me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. You have a question, Matt?
I got screwed up and I was supposed to ask a question. I let it get past. Can we rewind and let me ask a question?
Sure.
I'm reading the staff denial letter dated September 14th, and it specifically points out 2 guidelines that Mr. Allred has failed to meet. Guideline number 2, 4.4, railings and barriers shall be constructed of ornamental metal, wrought iron, or other compatible materials. What part of that is he in violation of?
And I think, Commissioner, if you read down a little bit, not just in the letter, but also in the downtown design guidelines, it talks about compatibility also.
So it's not the actual materials, it's the compatibility?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Get that? Other questions? Was there any other new comment this evening, public comment? new information.
Is this open public comment? I was misunderstanding.
Open public comment?
Is that what this is?
Yeah, new information on this application.
I just have public comment, is that?
Okay, come on.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm misunderstanding. My name's Katie Welsh, just speaking for myself. I went to Jazz. It's great, the food's great, staff's friendly, music is perfect. But I would also ask you to remember when the noodle shop went in at 8th and Mass on the northwest corner, their chain of restaurants always has a giant red frying pan on top of their restaurant. That's what they always have. And we asked them to adhere to our design guidelines and say, well, we do it a little differently in Lawrence, Kansas. It's a National Historic District. I think that the ambiance is there. They've done it. I think that this is I'm afraid it is gonna set a precedence, and people are gonna come with all kinds of archways, and it could be wacky and wonderful, but I think we should slow down and look at our code and our rules for outdoor dining. I think that's what needs to be looked at. Thank you.
Thanks, KT. Anyone else? Okay, back to the commission.
You know, Mark, I know when this came up before, I had had an inclination to allow it at that time, but I've read through the documents, and I really feel as though I need to follow the staff recommendation on this, for the HRC recommendation for denial.
Okay. Anyone else?
I supported the HRC recommendation, and I maintain that.
Okay. Anything new?
Yeah, I think that we should go with number one, which is uphold the HRC determination.
Matthew, anything new?
I'm just looking at the two things we're denying them on, and I'm having a hard time agreeing with either one. I don't think it's a railing. I don't think it's a barrier. I don't think it's a fence. You can walk through it, it's not a fence. And then item 4.4, railings and barriers should be constructed of ornamental iron, wrought iron, or other compatible materials and shall reflect the character of the area. The fence he has around his seated area is constructed of the exact same material he's wanting to construct the entryway of, and no one had a problem with that. It's constructed of the exact same material that Buffalo Wild Wings constructed their fence of, that no one had a problem with. I think it's compatible with what's been there. So, I can count people. I know I'm not winning this one, but I don't think the reasons we're denying go against our downtown guidelines.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I looked at, Mr. Allred, and I want to say up front, I appreciate your investment in downtown. I mean, like you, I have a great deal of love for downtown, not only Massachusetts Street, but all the downtown. One of the things that I wanted to make for sure, and it was after comments the planning director made several weeks ago, was we need to be careful on, these guidelines have been established for a reason and to be followed. One of the things that I did notice and was brought up again was, the railing shall not be higher than 45 inches. It's recommended at 36, but, this obvious to me is higher. They're in the middle than 45 inches. Matthew, I don't disagree with all the material that was used here and all of that, but I think that we allow the use of public right-of-way, and that's what this is about. It's the use of public right-of-way for additional dining or retail space and such. And I think one of the things, well, not retail, but, service space at this point. But we allow this, and for doing that, we have specific standards that I think has to be followed. And I think that that's all this is at this point, is that as much as I would love to support it, I think the truth of the matter is we have to have standards that are in place to do that. And I believe the 45-inch railing height, shall be, that maximum height. And those are the, the rules that I think have been established and work pretty well. So with that, there are no other questions or comments. Is it the recommendation of the City Commission then to concur with the HRC's determination and deny the project as it does not meet the intent or the goals of the downtown design guidelines.
We don't need a motion to do that?
Yes.
I would move.
Okay. We have a motion made in the second to uphold the HRC determination to deny the project as it does not meet the intent or goals of the downtown design guidelines and guidelines part 3, 4.2, and 4.4. Was made by Vice Mayor Soden, second by Commissioner Boley. All in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Hey.
Passes 4-1. Thank you all for your time. Next item is to consider a request to rezone Z-15-00471, approximately .972 acres from IG, General Industrial District, to IL, Limited Industrial District, located at 1021 East 31st Street for a proposed gun range. This is submitted by Rick Sells on behalf of Spirit Industries Incorporated, property owner of record.
Mayor, as Catherine readies her presentation, we would ask for you once again to declare and disclose any ex parte communications that's not in the record.
Okay.
I spoke with Mr. Sells. Sells on this project. Other than citizens where I got emails from, that's it.
Melissa?
Yeah, I spoke to him as well, and I had 2 emails, which I am happy to relay. Looks like Michael, Kelly, and I think David Schneider was the other one.
But we all got,
Yeah, we got those.
we all got those, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't show all our names, so I thought
Okay.
I'd make sure to say that.
Okay. And I talked to Mr. Sells yesterday, and I received a call from Shannon Kimball, and I'm sure it's from, reiterating the same letter that the school board had sent, so.
I met with Mr. Sells.
I met with Mr. Sells. I also had a phone conversation with Ms. Kimball of the school board. I also, in full public disclosure, work for the school district, which the school board had sent a letter regarding this issue. So I've also had conversations with fellow staff members. These aren't anybody that's on the inside of the issue by any means, but just people who have stopped by my classroom to give me their 2 cents. These would include my administrators, and basically pull up the Lawrence High School staff list, circle all of them. But yeah, they didn't have any insider information that you guys wouldn't have.
Okay.
One more, Mike, I'm sorry. I did get an email from Melinda Henderson regarding this issue.
We got that also.
Did everybody get that? I didn't see everybody's name on there. Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kathleen Simmons, and I'm one of the planners here at the city planning staff. And I'm here to present to you this item that's coming before you from the Planning Commission in November. This is for a rezoning. It's for property located in southeast area of Lawrence. It's going from IG, or it's proposed to go from IG, which is Industrial General, to IL, which is Industrial Limited. This is the general area of the property outlined in red there. It's down by the new interchange for Haskell Avenue and 31st Street, just to give you references to where that is. This is a little bit zoomed in here, showing you the property location outlined in turquoise and the general zoning that's currently surrounding the property. It's currently, as I said, IG and surrounded by IG. To the north is IL, and then just to the north of that is GPI, which would be the school property, which we'll talk about shortly. There's an RS7 portion of Prairie Park neighborhood to the east and IG to the west. Just so you know, the applicant is coming before us tonight to propose changing this from IG to IL, because IG currently would not allow participant recreation sport indoor, and that is what his proposed business use would be. So currently, IG allows things like building maintenance, construction, sales and services, any and all types of industrial uses, wholesale storage and distribution, vehicle sales, agricultural sales, recycling facilities. The difference in IL, it eliminates some of the larger industrial zoning uses, but it introduces the one that we're looking for tonight for this particular applicant, which would be participant sports and recreation, indoor, outdoor, or passive, office health clinic, religious assembly, fast food order, food, retail sales. It opens up a little bit more flexibility as far as the industrial zoning goes as to what could potentially be used on this piece of property. What is existing now is a vacant industrial storage building. The former use was a manufacturing and production limited use. What is proposed is an indoor gun range and ancillary sales, which would include the participant sports and recreation indoor, which would be the actual gun ranges, lanes themselves. And it would have ancillary repair service and ancillary sales. So we did have at Planning Commission communication, as you know, from USD 497. The concern is the Gun-Free Schools Zone Act and the 1,000-foot buffer around public schools, or private schools for that matter. This property, from property to property, is actually located approximately 750 feet from the Lawrence College and Career Center. So that's where this is coming into play. Some of the talking points about this were what's allowed by code, what the federal act states, whether or not city prohibits the use, which in the staff report you'll see staff finding is that it does not, and then that the proposed rezoning and use conforms to all of our current regulations, codes, and legal determinations made by legal staff. So this is to give you an idea of where the property is located there in pink down to the south. The school property is located there, it's outlined in green. And the red hatched area would be that 1,000-foot buffer, which is taken from all of the perimeter points on the property lines, and the 1,000-foot buffer then is extrapolated out, and that shows you where that buffer area lies. We've also included some maps for additional information just for your consideration. We did a study to see what current properties within the city would allow this use, and those are what is shown in green there. That's not to say these properties are necessarily available currently for sale or for lease, but this is where the use would be allowed within the city. This is that same map showing you where schools are located and their respective buffer zones in relation to that location. And as you can see, our location is down to the south again by that interchange. I think I can kind of show you here on the map. This is the College and Career Center here, this southernmost buffer zone that you see, and then the property is actually in this little rectangular area just to the south of that. And this is kind of a zoom in on how that buffer zone is impacting the site. Almost 3/4 of the property location is located within that buffer zone. So that gives you an idea of how that is impacting it. Also, for further information, just to let you know, the applicant was and is currently still looking at alternate locations. One of the alternate locations mentioned by the applicant is at the Anderson Rental Building, which is on 6th Street. This is also showing you that location, and in relation to another buffer zone, this would be generated from Pinckney Elementary School. So it's just outside that buffer zone. But to bring your attention, this is a different type of location, a little bit more dense, and again, in relation to the proximity to a buffer zone, just so you have that for your further information. And then another location the applicant is looking at, which we actually received a partial site plan application today, so this is one that he is actively engaged in looking at, is in the malls, which is located at 23rd and Louisiana. This buffer zone, which there's also the UST 497 owns the property there with the baseball or softball field and the, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the satellite school just south of the high school. So this buffer zone impacts this property, but the actual location this applicant is looking at this property is the southwesternmost corner of that building. So those suites are not actually in the buffer zone, they are just outside of that buffer zone. But again, this is another area that the applicant is looking at. So your options tonight, since this came from Planning Commission with a recommendation for denial, there was a vote 4-2, and a staff recommendation for approval based on the findings of the staff report. You have 3 options. It would take 4 votes to overturn the Planning Commission recommendation of denial, 3 votes to affirm the Planning Commission recommendation, or 3 votes to return the project to the Planning Commission for further consideration. And I think staff would suggest that if you are going to return it to the Planning Commission for consideration, that you're very specific in what you're asking them to reconsider. So,
Okay.
and I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Questions?
The shooting range that the city maintains in the community building right now, roughly how many feet away from St. John's is that?
I didn't measure it, but I believe it's between 500 and 700 feet.
So it's closer than the proximity of the applicants?
Yes.
Mayor, may I
Let's go.
clarify? Catherine did a great job presenting this issue, but I want to make sure it's clear that neither our reading of the federal act or the local codes prohibits a gun range and retail shop from locating within 1,000 feet of the school. The federal act tends to exempt it on private property, not associated with the school. I believe in our discussions with Mr. Sells, he's looking to give a lot of weight to the district and their concern for being within 1,000 feet. So he's looking at alternate locations that are outside of that buffer zone. I think one of the things we've weighed sort of amongst staff is, well, given how many places that he could locate, or that anyone could locate a gun range, should that be part of the discussion about the proposal before you tonight in this industrial park district compared to some of these alternate locations? So that's my clarification statement.
So the only areas of location is in, well, the requested,
Flip back up there.
the requested,
In the city, or the requested one?
yeah, in the new requested zoning district or in a commercial district?
It is permitted in commercial district. This would be going just from industrial to industrial, so it's
Right.
industrial general to
Right.
industrial light.
There are, I believe, the
Yeah.
IL, the IBP may allow it in several of the commercial districts.
Okay.
And that map that you had, that showed all districts that it would be allowed in, not just industrial or commercial.
Okay. Okay, other questions? Okay, Mr. Sells.
First of all, I want to thank you all for letting me come here tonight and talk to you. And I also want to thank all 5 of you for taking time out of your day to get sit down with me and give me the time to explain what I was doing. Not that I was trying to rally you to my side of the team or anything, but I just wanted you to know everything that was going on in the whole 9 yards. Everybody here has talked pretty much about everything you have to do. One of the things that I've told some of you, and I didn't tell everything, is it's hard to find a building because I have to have a building that's at least 100 feet long to make this work. I'd prefer to have it 90 to 110 feet wide if I can, because it makes it easier for me to get a classroom and everything else in there. There's a lot of things I have to do, like have a concrete floor, I have to pour concrete walls, and the whole 9 yards. But to find a building away from a school, and when you bring in the parochial schools and the private schools, and you saw the map, it's pretty hard to find a place to move into. So it makes it kind of hard. So that's the first obstacle you run into. And then the second obstacle you run into is you have to talk to the landlord and tell him you want to build a building inside his building so that you can build this cube that's safe enough, which basically, so people don't understand, I have to have a concrete floor that's 6 inches thick. I have to pour a rectangle inside this building with 8-inch thick walls, 11 feet tall. And then when I buy the ranges from the company, they're going to send out 3/8 inch, what they call AR plate, armor resistant plate, that goes in the ceiling. So basically you're in a box with basically, I've never heard of a bullet getting out of one of them. So you're making a safe zone there. And when you tell that to a landlord, it takes all them buildings that you saw up there and it brings it down to 2 and possibly the third one. In talking to you, I want you to know I took on a lot of insight. I mean, you gave me a lot of ideas. Mike hit me upside the head and kind of woke me up a little bit in our little talk. But the Gun-Free School Zone Act is a good act. I used to be a school teacher, and I'm not against that act. And like most laws or acts that they do, they tend to put loopholes in it. And the loopholes say that you can't have a gun or discharge a gun within 1,000 foot of a school. And I understand that. I don't know why anybody would go up to a school and do that. What I'm doing is a little different. I'm trying to confine it inside a building. But what it says is you can't have a gun or discharge a gun inside that 1,000-foot circle that she showed you up there, all the red lines and that. But it goes on to say that if the property you're on that's adjacent to that school and lies within that 1,000-foot area, if it's private, then you can do that. They'll let you do that. It also goes on to say that if you're an on-duty police officer, you're allowed to carry a gun in that area. And the last one is if you're a licensed agent of the federal government, which I am. I have an FFL, which is a federal firearms license, which allows me to shoot guns, or sell guns, I mean. And then I also have an SOT and a couple other licenses. So between the private property and the fact that I'm a licensed agent, it basically says, and I don't want you to take this wrong, it basically says I can open up a gun range anywhere in Lawrence. That's what the federal law says. If you go to the state law, which is, as I told some of you, I think needs to be relooked at, but I basically can walk up to the front door of a school with a gun on my hip or a gun down the side of my pants, and as long as that sticker's on the door, I can't go in. But if that sticker's not on the door, I can waltz right in, and by state law, I'm legal to be in that school with a gun. Now, the federal law overrides that, because the minute you walk up to a school, the federal law, they're gonna throw you in jail. And I want you to know that the fine for that is a $50,000 fine and automatic 5 years in a pen. So I guess you'd have to look real hard at that to want to do it, but people want to do it. So the Gun-Free School Zone Act, I understand it's there, and I'm understanding why it's there, but to say that it is involved in this really isn't, because the federal people have said it doesn't matter. I tried to look up online to see if anyone had ever been convicted of this law, and I could not find where one person had. You'd be surprised how many people don't even know about this law. I was telling a gentleman about it the other day, and he said, well, I take both my daughters to school every morning, and I have my gun stuck down the back of my pants, and I drive right up to the front door of the school, and he said, I didn't even know there was such a law. So I think it's one of those laws that probably needs to get out there more, because like he said, I won't carry anymore up to the school. But I don't think people know about that law. So I think it's something that needs to be looked at and needs to be brought out to the public, because I'm all about educating people about guns. I've been shooting guns since I was 5 years old. They don't scare me. What scares me is the other guy that's got them in his hands. That's what's a little scary, and you can't control that. The 3 buildings that they talked about, I will tell you, the one we're talking about tonight, 1021 East 23rd Street was one. The other one's in the mall shopping center. To answer your question, it is 1,053 feet from the property line to that building, so it lies outside the 1,000 foot. The one I talked a year ago with Bill and them down at Anderson Rental when they started on their project, it's 1,140 feet away. One of the commissioners said, Rick, you could do this and you could do this, and why this building? Why this building? Well, I'll tell you why. First of all, if you really look at all the locations I have, it is by far the best location. Now, other than the fact it sits by a school, it's the best location. It sits out there by itself. There's 5 other industrial businesses there. Not a one of them has said a word. In fact, they all keep saying, hurry up and open up. We want to come shoot. We want to shoot at the lunch hour, blah, 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 blah. So the biggest concern is the school. And I understand what the school's trying to do, but I wonder if they've looked at the big picture. And something that I found out today is 7/10 of a mile from that school on the corner of 23rd and Louisiana, there's a pawn shop. And guess what they sell? Guns and ammunition. So if the issue is that school's afraid to be close to any place that they could sell guns and ammunition, they probably should have looked at the site a little bit better before they moved into that location, because the pawn shop was there long before they ever built school. I know a lot of people here tonight are gonna might step up and say something about having gun sales in Lawrence, Kansas. And I understand where they're coming from. I'm a big boy, I can take the beating. My question to them is, did they all stand on their soapbox when the 2 pawn shops opened up in town and started selling guns and ammunition? Did they get on their soapbox when the 2 Walmarts opened up, they sell guns and ammunition? Did they get on their soapbox when Dick's Sports opened up? They sell guns and ammunition. I'm just wanting to do what's already been allowed to be done by other businesses here in town. And I think that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. I've had some people say that they don't think we need a gun range here in town. For those that don't know, there's been one here for 40 years, and it's in the bottom of the community building. And some of the guys I know that go down there and shoot say it's the best kept secret in Lawrence, Kansas. So they really like it and they want to stay there. When I look at the whole picture of this whole deal, I'm asking for a zone change. The federal, the state, the county, and the city law says I can do it. There's no codes anywhere out there that says I can't do it. When I look at the whole area and I look at what people throw at me as the reasons why they don't want it to be done, for instance, we don't want a gun place in that area. Well, you got one right up the street. They don't shoot guns, but they sell guns and they sell bullets. So it's hard for me to understand when everything says that it's available and I can do it. I don't know why it got voted down. I was reading some stuff this afternoon. You know, your staff says that I meet the comprehensive plan. They say I meet the golden factors. I meet everything that I'm supposed to meet. I'm kind of speechless. I don't know where to go from there. I know I have some alternatives. I'm working on them also. I'm hoping that you'll look at this tonight and say, maybe I don't like what he's doing, but when you look at the big picture, he has picked the best location, edge of town, away from housing, in an industrial area. Across the street's gonna be industrial. Everything, it just fits. Can I go to the other places? Yeah, but I think the school district, if you look at the site at 7-Eleven or in the mall shopping center over there, I can go there. Centennial School, Lawrence High, Broken Arrow, South Junior High. I just planted myself in the middle of 4 schools and legally can do it because I don't need a zoning change. I got to send out some letters and I move in 20 days and up and I'm going. But if we're worried about the kids, I think there's a far greater challenge to worry about 4 schools full of kids, which I don't know if they have schools at Centennial or not, or kids at Centennial, but at least 3 schools full of kids as to what you have out there on the hill. So I know you guys have all munched on this all week, and I know you guys have met and you've talked and you've probably made your mind up as what you're gonna do, but I really hope you'll look at this. One of the commissioners said, Rick, how bad do you wanna do this? And I said, I wanna do it. And I can do it. And he said, well, maybe you ought to look at another location and just go there and do it, be done with it. But again, I told him, that's fine, I can do that, and I can open up and be ready to go in 4 to 5 months. But is it the right location? Is it the proper location? Not just for the school district, but for the city of Lawrence. The other 2 locations that I have are basically in the middle of the city. So, other than that, that's about all I got to say. I've talked to you, and you know how I feel, and I tend to wear my heart on my sleeve when it comes to this topic. So, if you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer.
Questions? Sure.
Rick, could you tell me, are there age restrictions to your gun club? Age restrictions as to who can come in there?
Most gun clubs will let kids they don't allow any kids under 12 years of age. My deal is 18 years of age. If you're under 18, you're gonna have to come with your dad and take a safety course. You're gonna have to not only take a gun safety course, you're gonna have to take what we call a range etiquette course, so you know how to act in the range, because once you get in the range, there's some rules. For instance, you don't just load your gun up outside and walk in. No gun should ever be loaded until you're on the range, looking down the range, ready to pull the trigger. And that's when you load your gun. So we do plan on teaching classes. I haven't talked to the gentleman. There's a police officer here in town that teaches gun safety, conceal and carry, hunter safety, and I haven't talked to him. I did talk to the chief police and wondered if he would be upset if Max came there. I think Max needs to keep doing what he's doing because people know him. He's wanting to do what I'm wanting to do, you know. As I told you all, I think kids get out of school and they go home and get on their Xbox and they play games and they push buttons and shoot 150, 200 people, and then mom says, let's eat supper, and then it's time for homework, and then to bed, and then they go to school the next day and they come back and they hit the reset button and all the people jump up and they shoot them all down again. And I think kids need to know that that's not the way it works. When you point that gun and you pull that trigger, there's consequences that go along with that it's not on that Xbox. So I want kids to learn.
Do you do background checks?
Yeah, when I met with the Planning Commission, I told them that I was going to try to use the NICS background check. What the NICS background check is through the ATF, and it's what you use if you wanted to buy a gun. I have to run a NICS check on you. NICS has told me they won't allow me to do that, but I've found 2 companies that I can pay so much a month, and they'll do the same thing. So I will do background checks, and the reason why I have to do background checks is I'm not allowed to let a felon in my club. I'm not allowed to let a felon use a gun, and I'm not allowed to say, here, rent this from me. And so it's kind of catchy. Most clubs don't. Most shooting ranges don't. You walk in, you shoot, and they don't know.
So there's no requirement to have a background check? Or...
Not just to shoot, but I want a background check on anyone that comes in there, number one. And number two, I've looked at a breathalyzer too, because if I think somebody's been drinking, I'm going to ask them to blow. And if they, you need to leave. Same with drugs. I'm not going to put up with it, And a lot of people say, how are you going to stop it? Well, you just have to do it. And it's in the rules and regulations. And so they know before they ever get there that they shouldn't be on drink. I mean, I've had people say, are you going to put a bar in there? And I'm like, yeah, that's what I need, alcohol and ammunition put together. So I'm not. But,
Okay.
Rick, can you talk a little bit about some of the EPA requirements for the facility? And can you relate that to, my only frame of reference is the gun range that Lawrence currently has, which is frankly somewhat antiquated. Can you kind of compare your structure to the current city range?
I will, but I don't want you to use it to beat up on them.
No.
The gun range I'm putting in, I have to buy. The company will not sell it to you unless you buy it's called a HEPA filtration system. And the way it works is for every lane you have that you're going to shoot down, you have to have approximately 1 ton of air conditioning or a ton of some kind of fresh air coming in there that starts above the people's head, then it blows downstream. That air has to move at 75 feet per minute. And the reason why it has to do that, and the only way they can make it work, is on the other end of it is this filtration system. And there's a set of filters, or a set of closures or vents that pull it out, and then the traps that you actually shoot into, they're hooked up to it also. That air picks up all of the gun smoke, any gunpowder, all the lead contaminants, anything that's, I guess, bad for you, poisons, and it takes it through this HEPA filtration system. It has filters in the front and it has filters in the back. The ones in the front, they have to be changed every 30 days. The one in the back have to be changed every 90 days. to do a 90-day turnaround of them is about $1,800. So you're looking at, you know, $8,000 a year just to keep the air clean. But when the air goes back out into the air or outside, it's 97.5% pure, which is probably more pure than the air outside right now. The system they have in the gun range here is a squirrel fan. I don't know if you know what that is, and an 8-inch tube, and it runs down the wall, and then we've got a vent end on it down there, and that's how they pull stuff up. But I doubt if they've got 75 feet of air per minute moving down through there. You know, it's kind of scary because if it's not pure, then, oh, forgive me, you're opening people up to lead poisoning. And the other thing that I haven't talked about is harvesting of the lead. And I know that sounds like some song that somebody wrote, but at my club, the way the traps are, you shoot the bullet goes in the trap, it goes to the back of the trap, it goes round and round and round. As it loses centrifugal force, it will drop in a 5-gallon bucket. At the end of the night, we open that up, we pour that lead into a container to keep it sealed away. Other clubs don't do that. I don't know how they harvest the lead up there. I don't know how often they harvest it. I just know lead's a no-no. You have to do what the EPA tells you to do with it. So, but that's the difference in the two. And like I said, I don't want you to hold that against them and beat them up on it, you know, so.
Questions? Okay, thanks, Rick. Public comment. Any public comment? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. My name is Marcel Harmon, and I'm the Vice President of the USD 497 Board of Education. I appeared before you this evening on behalf of the Board of Education of Lawrence Public Schools in opposition to the rezoning request. The board has previously submitted a letter of opposition to the Planning Commission, and Shannon Kimball, board member, gave formal testimony in opposition at the Planning Commission meeting in which they voted not to recommend the rezoning. I'm here to again express our opposition and briefly reiterate our reasons for doing so. Last August, the school district opened our new College and Career Center at 31st and Haskell across the intersection from the property at issue in the applicant's request. It's under 1,000 feet from property line to property line, and our district has invested over $6 million in the facility. The city and county have invested substantial additional dollars in our partner facility at this location, Peasley Tech, for the purpose of creating a college and career training campus that, in partnership with the Boys and Girls Club, will be serving children as young as 10 years old in the future. The safety and security of our students and faculty at our school facilities is of the utmost importance and concern and drives our opposition to this rezoning request. We believe that rezoning this parcel will detrimentally affect our neighboring school site and that the gun sales outlet is not in fact a use that is compatible with the educational use of the school district's property. Regardless of whether a portion or all of the proposed site falls within the gun-free school zone Act's 1,000-foot gun-free buffer around our property, we believe that there will still be instances of guns being moved between personal vehicles in the facility outside of a locked case. In certain very, very rare cases, they could even be loaded. While acknowledging that responsible, well-trained gun owners rarely act negligently with respect to firearms, formal training requirements to own firearms are no longer required by the state law. Nor is the level of responsibility equal among all gun owners. And even responsible gun owners find themselves in a hurry, under stress, tired, or for whatever reason, make mistakes. Otherwise, we would never hear of accidental discharges or other shooting accidents. Our staff, students, and their parents shouldn't have this additional concern placed on them. Coming at this from another angle, one could ask if the Board of Education would have approved building the College and Career Center at its current location if the gun shop and range were already at the proposed site. And just to briefly respond to the pawn shop that's 0.7 of a mile away, that's about a little under 4,000 feet, just to put it in comparison to the 1,000-foot perimeter. I can say that I probably would have voted no. Shannon Kimball has stated that she would have voted no. Randy Maston, who's a previous board member, has also stated he would have voted no. And I haven't asked the other board members this specific hypothetical question, but given our previous submitted letter of opposition to the Planning Commission at the board, it's likely they would have voted no to this hypothetical as well. As elected officials, we make decisions within the political, economic, and general social cultural context of the day. We live in a state where one may openly and concealed carry a firearm without a permit or license, with limited background checks and training requirements. In addition, the ability of local governments to restrict firearms is almost non-existent now. Our state's ability to provide effective mental health, often tied to shootings, the shootings that we hear in the news, is under increasing stress. And by October of 2015, there had been 31 shootings in U.S. pre-K through 12 school settings. That's 3 a month on average. Given that this is the state of our world, the Kansas that we live in, the nation that we live in now, it would seem that locating a gun shop shooting range adjacent to a school is simply a bad idea. It's too much of a risk to our staff and students, both actual and perceived. And I'm willing to admit that the risk is probably greater a perception of risk as opposed to actual risk from a statistical standpoint. But nevertheless, we know that even a perception of risk can manifest itself as stress, negatively impacting performance and health. For these reasons, I strongly urge you to reject this rezoning request. Please support and respect the district's need to provide safe, secure, and healthy environments for our schools, for our staff, and for our community's children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Other comment?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Kenny Easthouse, 1611 East 24th Street. I am a resident of the Prairie Park District and have spoken to many of my neighbors, many of my friends, many people who work in the vicinity. I also happen to represent, I'm the election official for the Prairie Park District, so I get to know a lot of the community very, very well. The area that this proposed shooting range would be in. To start off with, I'd like to kind of set some parameters of how I'm going to discuss this topic. I have absolutely no interest in discussing the viability of the gun range, the proximity of the school, debating Second Amendment rights, or debating any other public uses for the property. What I would like to highlight to you is the current city zoning and planning in the area in regards to the Horizon 2020 and the revised Southern Development Plan, and how this does not actually fit into any plan currently set in motion. A little background. The revised Southern Development Plan borders extend all the way to 31st Street is its northern side, with East 1500 Road and Haskell Avenue maintaining the eastern border. This was maintained prior to the construction, which shifted Haskell from one side to the other of this property. At the time that the Southern Development Plan was enacted, this property was actually outside of the borders of that plan. Now it's currently inside the borders of the Southern Development Plan. And that shift can be highlighted here directly, where Haskell Avenue is going through with 31st Street right next to it, the red dot at the area in question. If you look at the map in the Southern Development Plan, the entire area up until that area is listed as open space. Now, I don't think anyone actually honestly believes that with that shift that we can backdate and say that entire area with the other industrial areas really should be green space. So if we're using the zoning boundaries indicated by the Southern Development Plan, all areas south of 31st Street and east of Haskell should be reserved for open space, and any rezoning would actually violate that plan as outlined in Horizon 2020. If we presume that due to the previous commercial activity in the Southern Development Plan, it needs to be updated to reflect the new boundaries, it kind of needs to happen outside of a single individual request, as we highlighted in last week's meeting, where an individual request, if we're updating a plan, we need to update the plan first and then take a look at the request. In short, there is no specifically stated plan for what will be a significant intersection here within the next 5 years. If we go back to how it currently is, the interchange is going to be getting off right next to this property. It should be highlighted that this crosshatch area directly to the west is where the Southern Development Plan is. This crosshatch area over to the east is where the Southeast Development Plan is. I could find absolutely nothing in Horizon 2020 or in any other economic development plan for any area south of 31st in between O'Connell Road and Haskell Avenue. In short, taking direction from previous decisions that the city commission has made. If there's no plan, we need to have a plan first before we approve any sort of zoning changes or any development in the area. I certainly wish Mr. Sales the best of luck. I am not a gun enthusiast myself. I would actually like to go shoot a gun at some point in a safe environment, and he seems like one of the safer gun owners and sellers that I've actually ever encountered. But to be consistent with every other request that we've had, if there's no economic development plan for an area, we need to address the plan first and then go forward to see what we can do to change, to incentivize the area.
Given that there's already a building there, a
Yeah.
vacant building, what would your recommendation be for the use of that building?
Well, to be honest, I don't know. Right now, we have a lot of things that are going to happen here in the next 2 to 3 years that will change that area dramatically. There's going to be a lot of new potential tenants to be there. Auto-related commercial would be nice because there's going to be an interchange right there for a gas station, and there's not a gas station for a couple miles until you get down to 23rd and Haskell. I anticipate there's going to be a lot of traffic in that area, so that's just one even proposed idea. Anything else, we need to have a community discussion for what we want planned in that area, and there is none at this point in time that I can tell.
Okay. Questions? Okay, thanks again.
Thank you.
Next question for Scott.
Sure.
What he's talking about, Southern Development Plan ends, but now it's been changed.
Yeah, and it's a function of when the plan was adopted, we didn't know the specifics of any interchange modifications to Haskell. We didn't even know what interchange would be part of the SLT. SLT was still in sort of a status of delay and waiting, and we knew the SLT would be there, so we took the boundary over there to the what we knew of Haskell alignment. So I mean, we don't see it as a plan conflict necessarily. It's going from industrial to industrial. It's all existing development there, and so we didn't, there's not a comp plan amendment that we required of this application to go from IG to
Southern Development, is that correct?
I don't know that we have the same map in our,
I'm sorry, I was looking at the one that just highlighted the outline of the property.
I don't know that we have the Southern Development Plan area in our report. It wasn't one of the golden factors that we weighed heavily in this case because it's existing development, it's zoned industrial. But let me try to find that answer out for you, Commissioner Larson. I don't believe it's in the plan. I'll double check. This is just east of Haskell. It's now just west of Haskell. Right, this is just east of the former Haskell alignment, which at the time, that's how we understood the boundaries of the roads setting up. We didn't know that KDOT would shift the Haskell alignment to the east as part of the SLT project.
So by shifting Haskell, does that shift the?
No, it shifted the street. It didn't shift the boundaries of the revised Southern Plan, which stopped at Haskell.
Okay. So what plan is this part of now? Or I guess
This
always was?
particular property is not in one of our sector plans. There's a gap between the two, primarily because it is developed. It is mainly right-of-way for major street systems and developed with the industrial uses here.
But by changing to this zoning, the IL, it actually kind of decreases or lowers because you can't use intense. They would not be able to do intense industrial now. Is that correct?
It is considered a lesser district, yes.
A lesser district, so it's.
Correct.
Okay.
We've had a little bit of a series of this type of application for recreation uses because things like courts and field houses and things tend to need the bigger buildings that have taller roofs. And we've done 2 or 3 over the last 5 years of rezoning from IG to IL because the IL district supports the participant sport. That's part of this. So.
Okay.
Hey, Scott, while we have you on the hot seat, is Mr. Sell's statement he made earlier where he said that if this were to fail tonight, and he has two other proposed locations that because they are 1,058 and 1,130 or whatever it was, because they fall outside that buffer, is he correct in stating that he could literally open this at the mall's location without commission approval?
There's, the maps that Catherine showed were areas that any applicant would need to go through a site plan process and building permits, sign permits, those sorts of things. Site plans do come with notice provisions, or 200-foot boundary notice. And, but it would be per our development code, a use permitted by right, so there would be no rezoning required. And that's what essentially what this application is the rezoning to accommodate it. All of the areas in green have the zoning to accommodate it, so it's a site plan application with notice, and there's that ability to appeal to the city commission by a stakeholder. But whether it's in that 1,000-foot buffer of a school or not, Mr. Sells would have that ability to make that application.
So is it an exaggeration then to say that perhaps our decision tonight is not whether or not Mr. Sells opens the gun range, but where?
I think the applicant has sort of allowed you to frame it that way because he is looking at alternative locations. He has submitted a site plan application today for the mall shopping center and has advised us that that's his backup location if this fails.
Okay, thank you.
Dwayne.
Mayor, commissions, my name is Dwayne LaFrance. I'm board of the chairman of the board of the Boys and Girls Club here in Lawrence, and I'm here tonight to express concerns on the board's behalf on Mr. Sells' proposed shooting range. We cannot achieve our mission at the Boys and Girls Club without the financial support and local community members, businesses, and government. The foundation of that support is the expectation that we provide a safe, positive place for kids. Though we admire Mr. Sells' entrepreneurial spirit, his intentions to provide education and training on the safety and use of firearms, the fact is that we are simply too many what-ifs that Mr. Sells, the school district, or the Boys and Girls Club cannot control and make this uncomfortable with having a gun retail shop and shooting range so close to our proposed site for our new teen center that we ask the commission to please deny this request. Thank you for your time.
Other public comment?
Hi, thanks for letting me come back. I'm Chris Lane. I grew up in Lawrence, Kansas. I got my hunter safety course when I was in 6th grade. So I've been around guns. I've hunted all my life. I recently was able to go to my grandparents' farm and shoot, because that was the only place I knew of to shoot in town. They got older, couldn't maintain the farm, they sold it. I now have no place to go shooting. When you look at the city from a gun owner, from knowing other gun owners, we don't like to draw attention to ourselves, because we don't like to really upset people who are against guns. We respect that. So if you look at all the locations, people who go to shoot at a range would rather be towards the outside of town, because we don't want to draw attention to ourselves by going to a big shopping center or going to another location in the center of town. But if we have to, we will, because we like to shoot guns. So we prefer it to be out on the outskirts of town in an area that's already industrial as it sits. So you don't have to bulldoze it down, you don't have to go through all the permits and everything else and changing it all again. It's less work. Also, another point of that, with the 1,000 feet, there's at least 3 or 4 gun places in town that's already within 1,000 feet of the school zone. One which occurred 2 years ago because it was able to get through because it was on a private property already zoned and everything else. So one's already passed through 2 years ago and within 1,000 feet of a school zone. Another thing about that is when you look at the actual site itself, where the school is located and the Boys and Girls Club would be located is on top of a hill surrounded by trees. Nowhere, when you drive by there, and you sit in that parking lot, you cannot see the shooting range. And if you go down to the shooting range, you cannot see the school. So from a zoning point, and also if you rezoned it later on, if Rick moves out, somebody else can move in and open up a gym in there. You guys don't have to revisit this issue. Because our main issue tonight is to see, should we rezone this for an indoor sports activity or should we not? It's not really about gun laws, but because it's such a hot topic, that's kind of what's been made out to be. That's what I have for tonight.
Thanks, Chris. Other comment?
Yeah, hi, I'm Randy Maston. I just want to say that I'm not hostile towards gun or gun owners. I was raised in a family of police officers. I've owned and fired firearms since I was about 5. I still own numerous firearms. I also served more than 20 years on active duty in the United States Army, both in the infantry and in aviation units, typically referred to as combat arms. I also served on the school board here in Lawrence until July of this year when my term was up. All that being said, I cannot express how against Mr. Sell's proposal I am. We're taking and intentionally, if he gets his way, putting a gun shop, a gun repair shop, and a firing range within 1,000 meters, within 1,000 feet of a school. And he said that we should have considered that with that pawn shop. 0.7 miles, Mr. Sells, is 3,500 feet away. 3 times. Okay, sorry. But by putting it in there, well, to begin with, the school board would not have approved it. I was on there. There was mention that I said that I would not have voted for it had it been within 1,000 feet of a gun range. There's no way I would have voted for that. And while Mr. Sells says that he is able to come within that 1,000-foot circle because of the license he carries, his customers and his clientele do not possess those same licenses, nor are they required to, and he's very unlikely to require other people with that same licensing level to use his facility to go out and get that license. It's just unruly, and it wouldn't be an effective business model. So while he can carry in that distance, if a person drives up, unless there is a large sign posted somewhere that says you're within 1,000 feet of a school, and even then saying this is in violation of a federal law if you're open carry in this space, anyone coming and going from that location is very likely to be in violation of a federal law. He may not agree with the federal law. He may believe that it's under-enforced. That doesn't change the fact that it is a federal law, and we are now enticing people to come and violate that law. Also, he says, that he wants to educate these people and that they would be knowledgeable of that. That's fine, but prior to entering his facility and receiving the proposed education, he has no control over those people outside of his facility. And so if they are arriving and they are violating a federal law, it's just not a good idea. And besides that, we're creating the perception among the potential students and the parents, more importantly, of those students out there, that this is not a safe place to be. We, the school board, invested, and the staff particularly, invested a considerable amount of time and energy in picking the location, and then a considerable amount of money in buying location and having it built for the College and Career Center. Anything that detracts from that is against the stated business interests of the community because they asked for it to be there. And so this is just not a good idea. I ask that you vote it down. And also, as for other locations, while he may be able to file to build his facility inside the location out there at the mall next to Epic Laser Tag and Pet World, 2 locations also filled with a lot of children, that would be open for public comment when that time comes. So don't think that by voting this down today, you're approving his building it in another child-intensive area. So, thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? Anyone else? Okay, back to the commission.
I had a question for Tony, or Brandy.
Is it regarding the application of that federal law?
Yeah, the federal law.
Ask Brandy.
Yeah, could you just talk about the federal law? Because there seemed to be some conflict as to what was being said.
The Gun-Free School Zone Act of 1990 was part of basically was a war on drugs type of thing. And what happened was it allowed the federal government another opportunity to tack on penalties for drug sales involving guns and within the school zone. There is a 1,000-foot boundary, but it's kind of a red herring if it's involving private property, because it doesn't apply if it happens on private property. It only applies if it's on public property within 1,000 feet of the school zone. So if this was private property, the 1,000-foot area has no applicability to it. Now, if this were some other type of thing where there's federally owned or state-owned private park or a state-owned public park or something else, then the 1,000-foot would apply. But in this situation, the 1,000-foot barrier is somewhat of a red herring. Does that make sense?
Are there some requirements as to how people can carry guns onto the property or how they are supposed to?
Well,
Locked or?
basically it is, yes. The law requires people who are within 1,000 feet on public property to have them in a locked container. That would apply just as you drive down the road because the roadway is public, right of way. But once they enter private property, then they're outside of the Gun-Free School Zone Act, and it has no application at that point. So as soon as they drive down the street, they have to be locked up. But as soon as they pull into the parking lot, they would be okay.
So how do we have a shooting range in a public community building that's within 1,000 feet of a school?
That's something we're looking into.
I mean, seriously?
I did not know about that until just a little while ago.
It's been there since I've been in Lawrence.
It's been there longer than I've been alive.
It's been there forever.
It's been there forever as far as I know, but I don't know.
I went and visited this afternoon. There's a big old no gun sticker on the front door where you have to walk in with your gun. How does anyone ever get a gun into there?
It's hard.
Are you telling me the sticker doesn't work?
Okay. Any other questions, Randy?
Yeah, just everything about what he is proposing to do is legal by law. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
There's no state law, there's no federal law, there's no local law that would prohibit a gun range on that property. Now, there might be reasons to approve it or deny it for zoning reasons, but just legally, there's no law that would prohibit it.
And what about the other locations?
They would be on private property as well, so there would be no applicability of that act.
Other questions? Thanks, Randy. Okay, Scott, again, Mr. Sells goes to the malls. He files necessary site plan and everything that he needs to file on this piece of property. Administrative approval?
Correct,
Okay. So we never see it again?
unless it's appealed by a stakeholder with standing.
Okay. The stakeholder was standing to somebody within the 200 feet?
Correct, or a neighborhood association.
Okay. Tell me the neighborhood associations in that area?
Malls might be Indian Hills.
Probably.
Centennial? That's right by Indian Hills though, because where we put that crosswalk, that was Indian Hills, and that's 3 blocks to the
Does Centennial go south of 23rd Street?
Yeah, Centennial doesn't go south of 20.
That's not within 200 feet.
It's not 200 feet barrier.
350.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they would have standing to bring the appeal to you. Typically, a site plan appeal is based upon an appeal of site plan standards, not necessarily use. So if it has enough parking and it has enough setback, I mean, in this situation is going into an existing space, a tenant space.
I was going to say, the determination of the use is already established by our own ordinance, correct?
Zoning, correct.
And so somebody that is appealing number of parking places or anything else, in, number of trees or whatever it may be.
Correct.
Those are the items that the appeal would be about, right?
Correct. By our code, yes.
And the parking lot's there, yeah. So, anyway.
Scott, let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you to speak on behalf of the planning department. You've heard Mr. Sell's 3 proposed locations. We know that 2 of them would require administrative approval only. Based upon your experience in planning and development, which of those 3 locations is the best location for what he proposes?
Well, we've had some good discussions about this. I mean, given that this is a bit of a controversial land use.
A little bit.
I think part of this reminds me of some of our cell tower discussions where you're trying to solve an issue for one part of the neighborhood and you're taking it to another part. And in this particular case, the alternate options are much more dense, have a higher activity area. They've got a lot more residential use around it. We've even, and I completely respect and appreciate the district's position on this, but I think you might want to also consider just the type of schools that are nearby, elementary versus high school versus a college and career tech center. And the age of those students and the maturity levels and the harm, frankly, that is potentially there. So all those things considered, I think our conclusion is that this is the most appropriate place, the subject location, the industrial location. It's probably, if we were to choose where we would want an archery range or a shooting range or something of this matter, we've looked to these industrial parks.
Does the Boys and Girls Club currently own property out there, Mr. LaFrance?
No, we are not, sir. We are in the middle of doing legal papers with the school district.
Go ahead and come to the microphone, please.
But no, we are not currently there. We're in the process of, with the school district, of doing all the legals to sign that over to us on a lease agreement.
Okay.
Where is the property that you're looking at buying?
Our property will be conjuncted to the new College Career Center. We'll actually be joined together by the breezeway between the 2 buildings.
Thanks, Tony. Scott, one of the things that I'm having a tough time with, at the time that the College and Career Center and Peaslee Tech, now the Boys and Girls Club, the Teen Center there, this is specifically the College and Career Center. I know we visited time with members of the school board in trying to get them to locate, adjacent to Peaslee Tech, that was, the other part of the building. They were looking at a location, and school board members can refresh my memory. They were looking at a location at Holcomb Park. And we made a decision to work with the school district and, everybody go together on the site where it's at now. And I guess my question comes in, did we not change that neighborhood by taking College and Career Center, Peaslee Tech, and in the future, Boys and Girls Club? One of the things that I noticed in the staff report was talking about the character of the neighborhood, item number 3, and, the applicant here is talking about the applicant's response. It talks about, the 6 industrial lots. Mm-hmm. But did we not, before, it was like all industrial around that area. But did we not change the character of that neighborhood by all of us going to that site and putting, public institutional buildings in there?
Yeah, I think an argument can certainly be made for that, Mayor, that we did, and we brought a different use. We brought a school use to the property, no doubt. So that area has changed. I think if it's a matter of relativity, though, of different spots in the city, you could argue both sides with this one because of the way the transportation systems lay out and access and direct relationship and indirect relationship. And we've worked hard the city has with the school district to make Peasley Center successful, to make college and career tech. We don't want to bring harm to that either. But I think the commission needs to direct us on what the expectation is and how important this 1,000-foot boundary is. Because another 50 feet in the same industrial park, and we're out of the 1,000-foot zone. We're still in the industrial park, but we're out of the 1,000-foot zone. And so, as Mr. Larkin mentioned, how much weight do we give this, the value and intent of the federal law? I'm not answering your question, I know, but it's been a complicated. It was a tough case for the Planning Commission to decide, I think, because they see all those different issues. And at the end, their findings based on golden factors was that it would bring more harm than good to the very uses, Mayor, that you point out.
Well, the hardest part about this is looking at the two sites, and let's face it, we're considering two sites, because we are looking at, well, three. But, after talking to Mr. Sells yesterday, I think we're talking primarily about two. I mean, he can go to mall, shopping center to mall, sign lease, whatever it's going to be. And is it smarter to place this use on a zoning change property at 31st and Haskell versus ultimately the mall shopping center? And this is after I helped encourage the school district to locate at 31st and Haskell with their college and career center. Boy, did I mess up.
Yeah, I think what's helped us consider this is the intent of the Gun-Free Zone Act.
Yeah.
And it's certainly intended to keep harm away from school zones and all the different very bad elements that can happen. And I think, though, that you have to believe that this use has that element and is going to bring a harm there. And I think that's a matter of opinion. Depends on what your personal experiences are. And if we believe that a gun shop and shooting range has the potential to bring harm to a school district, then it has potential to bring harm to a neighborhood or a commercial shopping center or an industrial park or any number of areas.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Any of the school board, Marcel or Randy, if Mr. Sell's proposal had not involved the retail component, if it was purely recreational shooting, would the school board have written an opposition letter?
Yes, I would.
Please come to the microphone. Yeah.
Well, I think for some, that probably would have eased some of those concerns. I think in the end, we still would have written the opposition letter, just because you're still going to have people bringing weapons to the facility with potential of being.
And Mr. Sells, or if you end up, if you're rejected tonight and you end up moving to the mall's location, which I'm seeing is like that Hume Music building, or what used to be Hume Music, would that have the retail component as well?
It will when I go in, but, it's like kind of like opening up a ice cream store and not having ice cream. That's why people are gonna come there.
Rick, to the microphone.
I think that the people that are gonna come there because they want to, I would be willing to say that 80% of the people are gonna shoot guns. That's what they wanna do. I mean, it's like the guy that gets off work on Thursday and goes and hits a bucket of balls to relax. That doesn't do anything for me, but, ripping off a couple of clips does. So, but yeah, I would go in with that. There's also, I mean, right now I'm selling out of my house and, mostly on the internet. And, if that's one of the things that would make it work, I'm not opposed to working things out if that's what it takes to get things worked out.
I'm just trying to pinpoint the opposition specifically. I want to make sure that this isn't, I want to make sure we don't vote on a motion tonight. I want to make sure we have a specific point. And when we talk about the the community building shooting range. I guess the fundamental difference between your shooting range and the community building shooting range, which is 500 to 700 feet from a school, and about 100 feet from a place that serves alcohol, for the record, about 5 feet from it.
5 places.
Yeah, so I guess the fundamental difference would be the retail component, because I can't buy a gun at the community building. And so that's why I asked Marcel the question, is that the sticking point?
And that's why I said if that needs to go out that way, I can still sell guns out of my house. I mean, you have to understand there's probably 10 or 15 other FFLs in town that are selling guns. It's not just the 5 places that I brought up. I mean, I know a veterinarian here in town that sells guns, so, you know.
Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Sells or anyone else?
Please.
We never had a discussion whether, retail versus shooting, and so the decision was, so I have no actual basis to, confirmation whether one way or the other. My feeling is that in the end, we probably still would have written the letter of opposition, just because there will still be guns that are being, to and from the place. But again, I don't know for sure because we never had that specific discussion.
Marcel, can you comment on the other 2 locations that we discussed tonight?
I haven't, for me personally, those 2 are the first tonight's the first I've really had a chance to see those. I admit I'm not too happy about those locations either from the school district standpoint. But again, we as a board, we have not had a discussion about anything else but this particular site.
Okay. Well, folks.
This is a perfectly legal operation. From hearing Randy, what Randy had to say, there's nothing illegal about it. And I think with this obsession we have with guns these days, that the one thing that's sorely lacking is education and training and learning respect for guns. And this is something that this is a business that would offer that. And I have all respect for the school district's position on this, but technically, I don't know how we can not let him be there on the edge of town in an industrial park in an IO designation.
I'm very impressed with Mr. Sells and his proposals. I really appreciate your interest in education and safety. That's so important, especially for the young people that will be learning about shooting and guns. On the other side of that, I'm very concerned about the ability of the Boys and Girls Club to raise the money to build that facility that is so important to our community, and which needs to be located by the Career Center. So I'm really torn on this one. And I guess, the malls may be the better place, even though it's more dense. But again, my concern about the Boys and Girls Club is what leads me to that conclusion. So.
Yeah. Anything?
I guess I'll go next. This is a really hard one for me for a lot of reasons. I was talking with Mayor Amix that up until about 24 hours ago, I was looking for a way out of this vote. When your boss writes a letter to the commission, it's hard to open your mouth one way or another. If you open your mouth one way, people say, oh, that's a conflict of interest. If you open your mouth the other way, you look for a job the next day. And I've done a lot of thinking on this, and where I'm at is the reason I'm sitting here today, and I am going to make a vote, is that I think it's my responsibility to take a stand. I think that people don't elect you to see your way out of votes. And so, one consequence or another for how I vote tonight, I guess I live with. But for me, I have a really big problem with governmental double standards. We had this conversation, I think this might even been before Lisa came on the commission, but when we were dealing with advertising in Rock Chalk Park, and the issue came up of we were going to grant a permit to Rock Chalk Park to do something that a normal citizen wouldn't have been able to do. And I spoke against it at the time, and I'll tell you what, I have a real big problem with us as a governing body telling Mr. Sells that he can't do something that literally our city government does. You know, we operate a shooting range less than 700 feet from a school. We have people bring guns into a public building with a big old "Don't Bring Your Guns" sign on the door, and they walk right into that door into a city-owned firing range with a 40-year-old ventilation system that probably doesn't meet any sort of EPA standard whatsoever. You know, when I walked by there today, you've got kids inside this. I mean, that's a dangerous situation. And yet, when I've talked to people about it, I get the same response I got from Mr. Larkin tonight. Is I didn't even know it was there. And I'm thinking about, what does that mean that no one knows it's there? And to me, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but that would lead me to believe we've never had an incident. We've never had a problem with it being 500 feet from a school. We've never had St. John's parents come before our city commission telling us to shut this thing down. I'm gonna have a real hard time telling Mr. Sells he can't do this when we are literally doing it ourselves. You know, every part of me wants to reject this because I teach at Lawrence High School. I teach kids. Kids' safety is my #1 priority every single day. But I don't think that putting it at the malls makes us any safer. In fact, it puts it closer to me every day. So, you know, I don't think it makes us any safer from a school standpoint. It's in a densely populated area. I don't think it makes our neighborhoods any safer putting it at the malls. You know, I frankly think as far out of town as you can put something like this, the better it will be. And this is literally about as far out of town as we can put something with it still in city limits. So, you know, if it's got to be this, the malls, Anderson Reynolds, I think you put it here every time. You know, and Stuart, I understand what you're saying about Boys and Girls Club. I'm a big supporter of Boys and Girls Club, but they don't, you know, they don't own that land. It's kind of like me telling you, I don't want you doing something with your front yard because I might buy your neighbor's house. I mean, I don't own your neighbor's house. They don't own that land. We can't really let them dictate policy on land they don't own.
Thanks, Matt.
I guess I have to go now. Well, this is certainly something that I struggled with as well. When I met with Mr. Sells, you know, I remembered in elementary school in Topeka, Shawnee Heights, you know, we had BB gun. I mean, that's what we did in school, on stage, the cafeteria. So, but we're not talking about BB guns, we're talking about guns, you know. I also come from a family, you know, from all up by the Nebraska border, and they all have guns. And, you know, I shot BB guns outside of school as well, but I'm not talking about BB guns, I'm talking about actual guns right now. And I think the 1,000-foot rule is really important. The one thing I haven't heard mentioned yet about the 1,000-foot rule from schools is that by putting something inside of that 1,000 feet, thinking of the spirit of the law where it had to do with the drug wars, so that they could add, you know, crimes onto someone that might be selling drugs near school and happen to have a gun, and so that's just an extra offense that you can put on there. I kind of worry about us actually, I don't want to say entrapping anyone, but I mean, if we're putting one within the 1,000 feet and saying, hey, bring your guns to this area within 1,000 feet of a school, I mean, that seems like an odd scenario for us to put other people in as well, you know? I don't know, maybe that's just me, that it strikes me as a little odd. But, so I think the 1,000 feet is really important. I'm trying really hard to not be distracted by the other locations that we could or could not be looking at. You know, it sounds like the school district needs time to think about that as well. I kind of wonder if we could almost defer this so that Mr. Sells could investigate these other areas as well, perhaps talk to the school district more somehow. I don't know, you know, the community building, that's clearly something of an issue. But does that mean we have to close down the gun range at the community building? Well, that sounds like it does have some serious issues with it. So I just keep kind of going around and around in a circle as well. But I think the 1,000-foot rule is important. Yes, it's on the edge of town. That would be a better ideal scenario, but it's 1,000 feet from a school. So I would say no because of that. I'm not anti-gun. I think education is really important. I was taught education when I was younger, under 18. So I don't know. I can't approve it, but I can't deny it. So I'm gonna have to err on the side of caution and go with deny, I guess, is basically what I'm saying. I think we need to work with him for another location, though, somehow, somewhere. I don't know how. I don't
Next to
know.
Lawrence High School?
Yes, there's none.
In an elementary school?
I don't know. I think it's important to not drag this into a what-if scenario. We're not looking at the what-ifs right now. We're looking at this
But from a
location.
long-term planning, maybe not even long-term, from a very short-term planning, when he leaves here tonight with a denial, there's going to be unintended consequences of our decision tonight. And so I think we do need to look at what his next play is, and Mr. Sells has already told us what his next play is. His next play is the malls.
Today.
He's already filed the paperwork. We're putting it at the malls, or we're putting it on the edge of town.
Okay. It is, you weigh all these options. Lisa, you're right, it's legal. Matt, you're right. Does it make more sense to place it at the edge of town than it does the malls? I agree, those comments right there. One of the things as I look at, the golden criteria established and here again, the character of the neighborhood and the effect, the influence that I may have had in working with the school district and moving, asking them to be a partner with the city, the county, and others on the new buildings that are out there, the educational buildings that are there. And I think that we established that character, and we changed a lot of that character too, once we brought the educational component there. And I think that. I suppose a little bit like the vice mayor, if you're going to err, you're on the side of safety every time. I'm just not sure that's the smartest way to do it. Sit there and I think from time to time, or in the last couple hours, Matthew, if you would have come to me and given me the opportunity for taking a pass, been one of those times, might have done it.
What were our options?
Yeah,
the options that we have
Put this
are.
up on the board.
Well, it's pretty apparent that we don't have 4 yeses, so I think what we need to look at is what.
Your options again are 4 to overturn the denial recommendation from the planning commission, 3 to affirm, or 3 to pass it back down to the planning commission for reconsideration with specific direction as to what you want them.
Why don't we pass it now? Realizing there aren't 4 yes votes, that puts us in the 3 no vote category, or probably, or potentially 3 yes. Wow. Then we get the majority votes yes and it fails situation, which is always fun to work with. But what about the notion of sending it back to planning? So that would be the 3 votes to return, and specifically asking them to work with the school board and identifying whether or not the mall's location or the Haskell industrial location is more fitting, because it seems like, particularly Vice Mayor, your comments that, that 1,000 feet matters to you. And I respect that. At the mall's location, we're at 1,053, 58,000, we exceed 1,000. How much of a difference a couple hundred feet makes realistically? I don't know, but if that 1,000-foot marker is, is that critical, what about the idea of sending it back to Planning Commission and saying, let's work on an alternative location? Because like Lisa, the first thing, Commissioner Larson, you made the comment that I think we need to reiterate is there is nothing illegal about his proposal.
No, it's not.
And so we don't have, in my opinion, a ton of respectable options to turn him away. We can work with him on finding a more suitable location, but there's not a whole lot of ways that we can do this the right way in saying no.
It's an industrial area. Where else
That's-
would you want something like this, other than
That's where I would want it.
out in the middle of
Except
nowhere?
that, I hear what you're saying, Matthew. But I think Boys and Girls Club has to be a part of this conversation. They are looking at getting land from the school district, as I understand it, for their center, which is to be right connected with the Career Center. And that's a really important thing for our community. So, I think that the Boys and Girls Club has to be a part of this conversation.
I think we should perhaps defer this, and then let's just work on the mall's location. Let's put that through the process. See what happens with that. We keep forecasting what may or may not happen. Let's just put it through the process and see what does actually happen.
So defer this item, or table this item, I suppose.
Then you're asking him to propose a second location without being turned down on his first.
Right.
We understand that this is the applicant's first desired location. So what I'm seeing right now is you don't have 4 votes to overturn the planning commission and approve it. So you're left with 3-2 to deny, or 3-2 to send it back. I might be able to help here in that there is some new information that you are seeing that the planning commission didn't, and that's the site plan submitted today on an alternate location. At the time, it was more theoretical that there could be alternate locations. Now that's kind of firmed up a little bit. And, and so if you have that question and others that you want the planning commission to ponder, then it may be beneficial to send this back to the planning commission in this instance.
So Vice Mayor, that would give you that opportunity to have the alternate location looked at, if that is your desire, to be able to work with Mr. Sells there and get some kind of decision made on the alternate location at the malls. And then, before you have to make final decision on this one.
Because in the meantime, we will start processing that, send the notice, and do a parallel process.
And we can also have them take another look at the character of the neighborhood, which is what you pointed out.
We can, and it also gives the school district some time to look at these alternate locations and determine if they have a position or opinion on those locations.
Okay. So Matt, you're recommending sending it back?
Yeah, I just think I think that's the best option that we have available to us, given the vote count. If our concern is safety, it seems pretty counterintuitive to move it to a more dense location.
Okay.
But if
minimum send it back.
Yeah,
that's what I would.
if that's what we're thinking is the most responsible thing to do.
And as I understand the Vice Mayor, you're talking about exactly kind of what Scott is saying, this parallel look at an alternate location, which is the mall shopping center, before, and then have the planning commission relook this item with the things specific to this site, whether it be character of the neighborhood, and also the additional information of the mall's secondary location.
Which is outside of 1,000 feet, not by a lot, Brandon, but it is.
Magic number, yeah.
Yeah.
It's important, I realize that, it is important.
Okay, so you want to make a motion to send it back?
I guess I don't, for some reason, it seems odd to say this, I just don't have the fear of putting it in the malls versus having fear at the industrial. I fear both locations, but there is an 1,000-foot rule at the industrial location that there is not at the malls. To me, it doesn't really have to do with density. Like I said, though, I'm the kid that did BB gun, practice and competitions inside of my school. So I don't have that fear component. It's just the 1,000 feet seems to be important. It's important to the school district. I think that we should affirm the 1,000 feet and look at the malls. Doesn't scare me that it's in a more dense location.
How's that going to align with your character of the neighborhood argument? I think if you ask the guy who owns the mall's barber shop, he might tell you that that's a problem with the character of the neighborhood.
Or the housing right behind it.
You might ask Jim Lewis what he thinks.
It's already zoned.
Okay.
I used to live behind there.
You want to send it back?
I move to send it back.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion made and second to send it back for the specific reasons of, spell them out. Give me one.
Give me one.
How about we send it back for a comparative look
There you go.
at 2 locations?
You have an application that's been filed for a site plan by Mr. Sells on the mall shopping center, and you're saying that you're going to run these things parallel while the planning commission's looking at whatever direction that we send back to them. At the same time, there's going to be, you guys are going to go through staff look at the site plan that's been submitted, so that when eventually it comes back to us, we're going to have the opportunity to look at both of them.
Now are we ruling out that because that Anderson Reynolds location was mentioned?
I think he signed a deal,
Now, I think
though.
Pinckney neighborhood might
He
might
filed,
be-
he filed an application, though, with the city on a site plan.
Okay.
For the mall shop.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can't lose sight that we have a pending application for rezoning in front of us.
Right.
We have, right now, a pending application that's just started today on a site plan process. Theoretically, that site plan process could be done fairly quickly. It's not, from our standpoint, it's not much of a site plan process. It's
there.
But we're gonna do it. We're going to, if it ends up that, I think we've got a friendly applicant, and Mr. Sells, he wants to see this thing work through the system. If I'm reading our conversations, this is your preferred site. So I think even if he gets a determination of approval at the malls, I'm not sure you're wanting to act on that until you hear what your decision on this rezoning is.
Okay.
And so I think what might be beneficial, what the Planning Commission didn't do is a comparative analysis between the characteristic of the 2 location neighborhoods, the intensities at each, the surrounding uses, and its relationship within the city itself. All of those sorts of items, I think, is what I'm hearing you want a report back from the Planning Commission that would help you in your decision.
And the public would have a chance to comment on
The public would have a chance
the
to.
new information.
Correct.
And I'd like to have them take a look at the character of that neighborhood again, as the mayor
Got
pointed
that.
out.
Okay.
And as I mentioned this, when we look at the character of the neighborhood, it's for IL zoning, it's not for specific use in IL zoning. So we're looking at all the uses of IL,
Right.
its context of within IG, and that's how we land on a finding that it's compatible with the neighborhood.
We just got done putting an IL in the middle of a neighborhood, didn't we?
We did. Okay, I guess
Was that a motion?
yeah, we got a motion and a
Okay.
second to send it back. I'm not real comfortable with doing that, but anyway, I got a motion and a second and a lot of comments, so. You've got specific direction to take to the Planning Commission and what the expectation of the commission is, okay? Motion was made by Commissioner Boley, second by Commissioner Larson, is that correct?
Correct.
Any other questions or comments? So the motion is to send it back. Everybody understands? Okay. All in favor of that motion, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It passes 4-1. Okay, thank you all. You going to the bathroom?
Oh, well, we're about to do,
Yeah.
no, we're not, we got another.
Oh, we got.
You want a 5-minute break? Okay. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Because we got the HRC stuff too. I need a little sugar.
What?
We've only scored 49.
We're person short.
Where'd she go?
4 out of 5 ain't.
I just saw her walk through there. Oh, here she comes. Okay.
Mike, I probably should have mentioned before our school board friends left that we don't shoot BB guns in the Lawrence Public Schools.
Yeah, you know, I
If I could
wonder
just get
how,
that on the record.
that's what we did, and it was fun, and I was good at it. I want to tell you, I was good at it.
We don't do it.
Okay, next item on the agenda is to consider the following items related to the 2016 Art to Go Parade, Final Friday event, and the 2016 Lawrence Busker Fest Street event. First is conduct a public hearing regarding a distance limitation waiver for the 2016 Art to Go Parade, Final Friday event to be held Friday, May 27th at 12 p.m. to Saturday, May 28, 2016 at 2 p.m. And find that the proximity of the temporary sale of alcoholic liquor for the event is not adverse to the public welfare or safety and grant a distance limitation waiver. Public hearing should apply to the 900 block of New Hampshire Street portion of the event. B, consider adopting on first reading ordinance number 9191, allowing the sale, possession, and consumption of alcohol in the public right-of-way in the 900 block of New Hampshire Street during the Art to Go Parade. And third, conduct approving a street event permit for the 2016 Art to Go Parade and Final Friday event on Friday, May 27th, 2016 to Saturday, May 28, 2016 for the closure of the 900 block of Massachusetts Street. No, New Hampshire Street, sorry.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners,
Mark.
Mark Teal, Public Works Department. That's correct, you have public hearing to conduct tonight. Because of the distance limitation waiver you need to grant for this event to have alcohol within the proximity of the Salvation Army. The other event that's combined with this is the Busker Fest event, which you have the same three similar actions that you'll need to take tonight. This event, last year was the first year we put them both together for you because they basically, it's two separate events, but they have partnered and worked together to share space. And so there's continuation of some closures of the roads, and I'll show you the map here in just a second. But it goes from Busker to Art and so forth. So I think it makes sense last year to do it, and it made it a little more streamlined this year. And this is the map that it's hard to see on there, but you can see the timelines for one event to the other event. It helps with our operations. I think it also helps with the police department and their operations and knowing that, you know, there is two events, but they're in the same footprint. Like I said, this is an annual event. Both of these are annual events that have happened in the past. We've done our due diligence that we have set in place for street events. Notifications were sent out for the public hearing 30 days in advance. Also notifications of your consideration of the right-of-way permit and the alcohol ordinance were also sent out for this event. I think that's probably concise enough for this event. You all are familiar with it. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have about it. Richard Renner with the Busker Fest is here, and Heather Hoy from the Arts Center is also here for her event with the Final Friday Art to Go Parade.
Okay.
With that, I'll stand for questions.
Questions of Mark?
Are we doing A through F
Yeah,
as one motion, or do we have to do them
Do we have to
individually?
consider these separately?
I think you can do this with three. You have to have two separate public hearings because they're separate ordinances, but I think you can consider both ordinances and both right-of-way permits under one action. I think that would be accurate.
So the hearings,
Okay, so we'll
A
go
and
ahead.
D,
What's that?
A and D, we gotta do separate.
Yeah,
I don't have any, those were my questions.
okay. Any other questions? Okay, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
For A or D?
A.
Okay.
Motion made and second to open the public hearing. This is item number A. made by Commissioner Herbert, second by Commissioner Boley. All in favor of that motion, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 5-0. The public hearing is open. Is there any public comment on the distance limitation waiver request for the 2016 Art to Go Parade Final Friday event? And that is for Friday, May 27th, from 12 p.m. to Saturday, May 28th at 2 p.m. Any public comment? Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second to close the public hearing, made by Vice Mayor Soden, second by Commissioner Herbert. All in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 5-0. You say,
D.
If you would like to do the next public hearing and then do the actions, or you could approve the ordinance on first reading and the right-of-way permit for the Art to Go, and then do the public hearing for
okay,
Busker
well,
Fest.
let me read these off so everybody's happy legally, okay? The next item that we have is then to conduct a public hearing regarding a distance limitation waiver request for the 2016 Busker event to be held Friday, May 27th to Sunday, May 29th, 2016, and find that that proximity of the temporary sale of alcoholic liquor for the event is not adverse to the public welfare or safety, and grant a distance limitation waiver. The public hearing would apply to the 900 block of New Hampshire Street portion of the event from Saturday, May 28th, 2016 at 2 p.m. to Sunday, May 29th at 7 p.m. And the items that go along with it are ordinance number 9185 on first reading, which is allowing the sale and possession and consumption of alcohol in the public right-of-way in the 100 block of East 8th Street, 900 block of New Hampshire Street. And then the last item is consider approving a street event permit for the 2016 Busker Fest for Friday, May 27th to Sunday, May 29th, 2016. The event will be held in the 100 block of East 8th Street and the 900 block of New Hampshire Street in front of the U.S. Bank and not in the right-of-way. So I would entertain a motion to open up the public hearing for the 2016, the limitation waiver request for the 2016 Busker Fest to be held in May of 2016. Motion made and second to open the public hearing, made by Commissioner Boley, second by Commissioner Larson. All in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Public hearing is open. Is there any public comment on this item? Anyone? Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made and second to close the public hearing, made by Vice Mayor Soden, second by Commissioner Herbert. All in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. So, next item then is to consider adopting on first reading, ordinance number 9191, allowing the sale, possession, and consumption of alcohol on the public right-of-way in the 900 block of New Hampshire Street. Do we also have to make that determination that, that this temporary sale of alcoholic liquor for the event is not adverse to the public welfare, safety, and granting the distance?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to include that as part of this ordinance, is that correct? Okay. And then also, the second item would be, you want these voted on separately?
You can.
Entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 9191.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and second for approval, made by Commissioner Boley, second by Commissioner Larson. All in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. And the last item of that group is motion to approve the street event permit for the Art to Go Parade Final Friday event in May of this year, for the 900 block of New Hampshire. Entertain that motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second for approval of the street permit, made by Vice Mayor Soden, second by Commissioner Larson. All in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. We have made a determination that temporary sale of alcoholic liquor for the event, Busker Fest 2016, from Friday, May 27th to Sunday, May 29, 2016, is not adverse to the public welfare or safety in granting the distance limitation. I would entertain a motion to adopt on first reading ordinance number 9185, which allows that sale, possession and consumption of alcohol, public right-of-way on the 100 block of East 8th Street, 900 block of New Hampshire Street. Entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
Motion made and second for approval of 9185, made by Commissioner Herbert, second by Commissioner Boley. All in favor of that motion, aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That passes 5-0. And then the last, entertain a motion to approve the street event permit for the 2016 Lawrence Busker Fest for the dates specified before. Entertain a motion to approve the event.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second to approve the event was made by Commissioner Larson, second by Vice Mayor Soden. All in favor of that motion, aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Best wishes to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excited.
Sorry it takes me forever to read that.
Pop your arm. Tell you, this will be the year I'm gonna figure out where that guy hides the melon.
Next item on the agenda is conduct a public hearing and consider recommendations from the Historic Resources Commission to designate the following properties as landmarks on the Lawrence Register of Historic Places. It's 1345 West Campus Road, the Chi Omega House, 1005 Sunset Drive, the Fuller House, 304 and 302 Indiana Street, the Zimmerman House and Zimmerman Carriage House, and 1624 Indiana Street, and that is the Beal House. Lynn, welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening again. One of the most wonderful parts of my job is working with property owners, the LPA, and then bringing it forward to the City Commission and to any of the public that happen to be watching us this late after you've had such a fun evening, about a little bit of the history of Lawrence. We can look at all different kinds of architecture in this town, and I hope you had the opportunity to read some of the fantastic information that was included in the nomination applications. We really do have a wonderful, diverse architectural styles in the community that really speak to our overall growth as a city. And so I won't continue on, you know it's my passion. So we do have 4 items for you to look at this evening: the Chi Omega House, the Fuller House, the Zimmerman House with its carriage house, and then the Beal House. The first one is the Chi Omega House. I think most of you probably know where this is, up adjacent to KU. It was built in 1925. It's a Tudor style of architecture. It was listed in the Kansas Register of Historic Places in 1983. The Historic Resources Commission found that it meets criteria 1 and 6 as identified in Chapter 22 of the City Code. And mainly that's for its architecture and then also for its association with the Chi Omega sorority and the development of sorority and fraternities at the University of Kansas. The second property is the Fuller House at 1005 Sunset Drive. This house actually dates back to 1863. It's a vernacular structure that we call gable front National Folk style, but really what this house is and can be a fantastic example of how we started out with a very simple form, and over time the land changes around it because they sell off pieces of the property, and what was once a farmhouse becomes in an urban area, and all the different changes to the house. And so what was really neat about this application for me was, if you see in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, we actually had a historic photograph of what the house looked like at one time. And so this property is being nominated for the development of the history of Lawrence, its architecture, and its association with Mr. Fuller. I'm a little bit biased. This is one of my favorite properties in Lawrence. It is the Zimmerman House and the Zimmerman Carriage House. This is truly our finest example of a true architectural style in Lawrence. It's a Second Empire building, and if you haven't had a chance to go there, the detailing on the structure is fantastic. One of the things that we worked with the State Historic Preservation Office on this nomination when they did the Pinckney District nomination was that we have really good indication and documentation that the structure behind the Zimmerman House was truly a carriage house for the Zimmerman House at one time. So we went back to the original landmark proposal and added the carriage house in with the primary structure for this overall nomination. Again, the beginning was 1869. We believe the carriage house date is 1897. It's been listed in the National Register since 1974. The carriage house was listed in 2001, and they are both significant for their architecture. The last property is one that you haven't seen a lot of on our register. The Lawrence Preservation Alliance and several other community groups, Lawrence, are trying to help us recognize more of our more recent past. This is the Beale House. It was constructed in 1950 to 1951, and it's really a fantastic example of mid-century modern architecture. It's Usonian organic architecture, which it's a little bit of a mouthful, but it's really, and you see a picture of Mr. Bill down in the left-hand corner of the screen. The top photograph is really not the front of the house. The house was designed to be organic in nature and take really into consideration the site of the house and how the house worked with the site for the overall architecture feel of the structure. This has been listed in the Kansas Register of Historic Places. It's been submitted to the National Register of Historic Places, and we expect to hear back from them within the next month or so about that National Register nomination.
Usonian a style or a person or?
It's a style of architecture invented by, well, not invented, but started by Frank Lloyd Wright. And so this is one of the really true type of forms that we have in the city of Florence. And so the Historic Resources Commission and staff are recommending nomination of this property under criteria 1, 3, 4, 6, and 7 as identified in your staff memo. It really hits almost all of the criteria in the chapter 22. So your action this evening is to hold a public hearing. You may do that for all properties at once, and then, if appropriate, adopt the ordinances associated with the landmark properties. And again, a lot of the information that you see in your packet, that is not me. It is wonderful property owners, the Lawrence Preservation Alliance, that really generate a lot of this information for us to take the pleasure in learning a little bit about our history. I'd be happy to stand for any questions you might have.
Questions of Lynn? Thanks, Lynn. Okay, so we do have to hold a public hearing, and then we have the ordinance number 9187, 9188, 9189, 9190 that are the ordinance making the landmark designations on the 4 pieces of property. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made and second to open the public hearing was made by Commissioner Boley, second by Commissioner Larson. All in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Public hearing is open. Is there any public comment on these items?
I will be very brief. Dennis Brown, President of the Lawrence Preservation Alliance. Just a couple comments. The first 3 properties are already listed on the state and national registers of historic places. The Lawrence Register was formed in 1988, so we're still trying to catch up with some of the properties that jumped the Lawrence Register and went on into state and national fame, and now we're saying, yeah, we agree here in little old Lawrence, and we want them on our Lawrence Register too. The 4th property, the Beale House, that's been nominated by the current owner, John Charlton, Betty Jo's son, working with a group called Lawrence Modern. And I think you folks are probably pretty familiar with Lawrence Modern. Tom Harper and Dennis Stomer and some of those folks have really done some a great job. And we have a lot of modern, mid-century modern architecture here in Lawrence, Kansas. The other thing I think that's interesting about that is there's a 50-year benchmark to be listed on these historic registers. So the mid-century moderns are just getting into that arena where they can be considered for listing. And to me, the interesting part about that is these registers are, in a sense, when you think about it, a challenge. Yeah, they're looking in the past and saying, wow, Mr. Beale, what a job you did 50 some odd years ago. But it's also a challenge to people who are building today, builders or owners of new properties. Are you building something that could be considered for a historic register 50 years from now? And you won't get to decide. Your children will get to decide. Thanks.
Thanks, Dennis. Other public comment? Good evening.
I'm John Charlton. I own the Beal House now. My parents bought it in 1971 and both lived in it until they died. My mother died the summer before last. And she'd always intended to nominate it for the registries, various registries, and just didn't get around to it. You know, it had to be at least 50 years old. And so I wrote the nomination and submitted it to the state, and it's now waiting to hear from the National Registry. And so that's why I thought it ought to be on the city registry too. And so I would like to see that. So I just want to let you know.
John, we appreciate you doing it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Other public comment? Out of public. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second to close the public hearing, made by Vice Mayor Soden, second by Commissioner Herbert. All in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes 5-0. Questions, comments?
It's on the National Register, we better put it on the warrant.
We may as well, yeah, that's right. Time to catch up. Okay, so I would entertain a motion, we'll do these all together. Entertain a motion to adopt on first reading ordinance number 9187, 9188, 9189, and 9190 for the landmark designation of the 4 properties listed. And I can do that, right? Okay. So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second to adopt those ordinances on first reading, as made by Commissioner Boley, second by Vice Mayor Soden. All in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you all very much. Next item on the agenda is to consider a motion to recess into executive session for approximately 30 minutes for the purpose of discussing non-elected personnel matters. The justification for the executive session is to keep non-elected personnel matters confidential at this time. City Commission will resume its regular meeting in the City Commission room at the conclusion of the executive session. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion made and second to approve that motion, made by Vice Mayor Soden, second by Commissioner Larson. All in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are in executive session. Okay, and we're back from executive sessions in regards to the city manager search. Just a heads up that negotiations with the selected candidate have been very productive. We anticipate making an announcement regarding Lawrence's next city manager very soon. So stay tuned. Okay. Next item on the agenda, future agenda items.
Mayor, I do have a few items for our future agendas memo. I'll make it quick, though, because I know you want to wrap up our evening. For the 19th, we have a number of consent agenda items. One we will be adding, I mentioned earlier, our Affordable Housing Advisory Board has directed staff to bring a request for proposals to you all to send out for the demonstration project for funds from that Affordable Housing Trust Fund that we talked about last fall. Okay. So you'll see that RFP added to your consent agenda. On the regular agenda, then you'll see the Menards item as well as the K-10 finding of facts. So those are those two items for the 19th. Then we'll move on to the meeting on the 26th. Again, some consent agenda items there. The IRB for Pioneer Ridge and the HERE project. So just wanted to highlight those items.
Okay, any questions on those? Okie dokie. See, commission items. Any commission items? Okay. Meeting calendar stuff? You guys got any calendar stuff, places we're all going to be at the same time? Okay. Well, if not, I guess I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made and second to adjourn, made by Vice Mayor Soden, second by Commissioner Herbert. All in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all.